There's a hole in my motorcycle frame. What am I going to do about it? Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. I hope you're all well. Another early start here in the UK, and I thought I'd bring you on a little ride out into the countryside, up into the hills. I'm actually on a road I've not been on before. But anyway, glorious little morning ride out this morning, and yeah, the heroic Harley is doing its stuff. Very stoic, very proud on these back roads. Anyway, enough of that. I got an email from actually a couple of people recently, but one in particular, guy who sent photos about rust on his bike and water coming out of holes on the bike, and he wanted to know what was going on. Why is there holes on the bike, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Okay, let's just get into this. Okay, so first of all motorcycles have holes in the frame, right? Some are on purpose, some, well, you think, well, why have they got a hole there? Okay, so some holes, especially at the bottom of the frame, are drain holes. So let's say water can get into the frame from access holes where they're feeding cables through or feeding lines through. So there has to be somewhere for that water to drain out so that your frame doesn't fill up with water and it doesn't rust, right? Other holes are there on purpose, so as I say, they can feed lines through, that kind of thing, electrical wiring, cabling, oil lines, whatever it is. So those are on purpose. The other group of holes on a motorcycle are down to assembly and manufacturing. Sometimes they'll have holes on there, even threaded holes sometimes, where the frame will be attached to a jig or an assembly line clamp or something like that. Or there are just spigots that will actually go into the frame, hold it temporarily while it goes down the manufacturing line or the assembly line. Now, sometimes those manufacturing assembly holes are filled in, they're welded over, or they're filled in with a rubber grommet or something like that, and sometimes they're just left open. Now, when I first got my Harley Davidson, I was very paranoid about it rusting. I thought, oh, this is going to rust, it's going to be terrible, especially on UK roads. So the way to overcome rusting is, well, there's a few things you can do. First thing to do is regular washing. Always wash your bike on a regular basis. The second thing is to avoid keeping your bike in a moist environment. So let's say you've washed it, the better thing to do will be try and dry it off as best as possible so that it's not resting in a damp environment. The other way to do it is really, as soon as you've washed it, you know, dry it off as best you can, but then go and ride the bike, and that'll just get rid of all the residual moisture. Now, if you're riding in winter months, then you want to protect your bike with moisture repellent, ACF 50, WD-40, all these kinds of products that you can buy on the market that will help to keep moisture at bay and ultimately keep rust at bay. Let's say if you do get rust on your bike, then you want to attack that straight away with some kind of anti-rust paint or touch-up paint, that kind of thing. Always keep on top of that. Right, let's get back to the case at hand. Okay, so if you look on the primary side on a Harley Davidson, especially on the soft tails, if you go to the midpoint of the primary, reach under the underside of the frame, you'll see there's a hole there. Actually, there's a series of holes on the underside of the frame. Those are natural drain holes. However, there can be rust coming from there. So get the bike up on a lift or crawl under there and touch it up with a bit of paint as well. Now, the other area here that you might want to consider is the rear fork, the rear swing arm setup. Let me tell you exactly what's happening here. Let me take the pannier off first. Okay, so what can happen is that you can have rust developing around here, around this rear fork setup. Why is that? Well, right here at the top here, you can see where this weld part here is there's a little bung there as well. It's a kind of a hard hard bit there, you'll notice it right under there. Sometimes rust can develop around there, and also there might be a little gap in there where this whole section might have filled up with a bit of water and then it's dribbling out of there. So where is this water getting in from? As I say, well, the water can be getting in from the top of the frame here and then dribbling all the way down, and then every time, let's say, you wash the bike, it's just coming out of there, and you'll see little water marks and rust marks coming down there. So how do you overcome that? Okay, so for me, this is a bit of a poor design from Harley Davidson, is that they should have put a couple of drain holes here right at the bottom. And if you feel on the underside here, right behind the brake caliper, there is another drain hole right there, just above the adjuster, right there. Okay, so if you've got water ingress here and it's filling up this tube, this part here, then it might be dribbling out here. But what they should have done was actually open up this drain hole here. So what you can do is drill that part there. So you basically just get a 2 or 3 mil drill bit and you try and drill that bit there. Now, yeah, granted, you're going to have to take the wheel off and everything like that just to access that. If you want to try and prevent this in the future, then you can get some black silicone, let's say, some water resistant silicone, and then you can just try and plug up that hole there. You can plug up that hole there, but you're never really going to be able to stop water getting into the frame. And actually, it's quite a bad idea to do so. What you want to make sure that at the bottom of the frame, there is a hole that the water can drain out of. So that's why, if you look here, right at the bottom there, you can't see it on the camera, but if you feel around there, you'll notice there's another little bump, a little bung that you can try and access. Now, people say, oh, you can't drill into your frame, you can't do that. Well, actually, you can. You can drill into the frame, but not too much, of course. You can't be drilling everywhere. But a little drain hole here and there, that's what we used to do back in the day. Just add a little drain hole, or make sure that the existing drain holes are not blocked. That's certainly one thing you want to do. And that's certainly something we would pay particular attention to if we do an off-road riding, that kind of thing. Make sure that any holes were thoroughly washed out and that everything was allowed to drain out. Now, also, what you want to do, make sure that these areas on the underside of the frame, and there's also a strap, a metal strap that goes in between the two frame rails, make sure that you regularly attack that with paint, anti-corrosive paint, protective paint as well. The underside of the bike as well. Nobody's ever going to see it, but you want to make sure that you're protecting it from rust as well. But the underside of the frame, the underside of the bike, and also these parts here, make sure you go around them periodically and touch them up with paint. And also, that's something I'll be doing the next couple of weeks or so. I'm going to be taking a lot of this stuff off, going around the bike, touching up just before I prep it for winter. And that's something that I do every pre-winter as well. I go around the bike, touch everything up, ready for winter. Then towards October, November, I start attacking it with moisture repellent, ACF 50, that kind of thing. Then I ride throughout the whole winter with that stuff on, regular washing as well, and reapplication, and then by spring, hopefully, I've still got a decent looking bike. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. There are normal holes on the bike, there are drain holes, there are manufacturing assembly holes, there are holes on purpose to thread wires and cabling through. But sometimes water can accumulate. So make sure if you do have any drain holes that they are free, they're open, they're unblocked. And also you may have to introduce a drain hole just to let any water escape. Now also, if you don't want to do that, you could, let's say if there's a top hole, you could get a syringe with a long thin tube and try and suck it all out. But at the same time, that water is always going to be in there, and it's always going to get filled up over a period of time. So the best thing to do is have a drain hole right at the bottom. But again, regular washing, regular touch up with paint, and you might want to try some silicone sealant as well, just to try and prevent any ingress as well. But as I say, the bottom drain hole, if you can introduce one, or if there's one already, that's the key here. That's the key to make sure that water doesn't accumulate in your frame. I'm going to put all this back together and head on down the road. But I'll catch you again in another video. If you've got any questions, feel free to keep on sending those in. Really appreciate those. And, you know, I'm happy to try and answer as many as I can. and try and make a video out of them as well to address this as well. And these kinds of things are generic to all motorcycles. It's not just Harley Davidsons. All motorcycles will have this kind of issue that you have to deal with. And if you've got any more questions, feel free to send those in. Send them in by the website RevelatorAlf.com. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, like and share it. Please subscribe to the channel, hit that notifications bell, all that kind of good stuff. Let's try and build up the channel as much as we can, so I can keep on bringing you more content. And also I just want to let you know that I have started another channel as well. It's all about sports reaction. It's called On Me Head Son, about football, about boxing, MMA, motorsports, that kind of thing. Go check it out. I'll leave the link in the description for you as well. Right, and with that, I'm going to head on down the road and up the hill and through the back roads. Catch you again. Ta-da.